The art of sending things into space is just that. It's an art, whether it be from NASA, SpaceX, the ESA, Russia, Japan, or whoever else trying to send things into the atmosphere and beyond. It takes a lot more to get it up there safely than just saying go up and give it enough power. Over the course of many decades, there have been many successful launches into space, but there have also been disasters that still haunt us to this day. Join me as I show you 5 rocket launches that went horribly wrong. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Number 5. October 2014 Antares launch. You may not realize it, but there are a lot of missions to space that happen in an unmanned capacity. The main reason for this is the International Space Station. They need restocking of supplies and to give off certain things to drop back to Earth so that they can be studied back in gravitational environment. As such, in October 2014, a routine rocket launch was scheduled to happen to send supplies to the ISS. As you'll see, everything started out fine at first, but things quickly devolved as the rocket got higher and higher off the ground. Eventually, the rocket couldn't propel itself higher and thus crashed to the ground with a massive explosion, ending the mission before it could even get close to the edge of the atmosphere. As you might expect, an investigation came about to try and figure out what went wrong. After a year of investigation, it was revealed that there was an issue in the turbo pump and the liquid oxygen tank for one of the engines. This caused the rocket to lose its thrust and thus start to fall down. A friction event then caused the rocket to explode as it descended back down to the launch pad. The irony, though, is that while they found out what caused the event, they honestly had no idea why the event happened at all. There were theories about defects, robustness issues, or debris causing damage inside the rocket, but no one's sure which of these events caused the series of failures that led to the Antares explosion. Number 4. Russian rocket 2013. If you were to look at the history of the space programs of the world, you'd find that the Russians were, and still are, in certain ways, the rivals to the United States. These two were the ones who truly made the space race a thing. And Russia had many firsts in that race, like the first satellite launched into space, the first orbit around the planet, and even the first man sent into space. Though America would eventually win the space race by landing on the moon in 1969. Fast forward to 2013 and the Russians are still launching rockets into space, but in the case of this one, it was about to go very, very wrong. As you'll notice, this one does indeed get off the launch pad and is seemingly heading into space, but then inexplicably the rocket starts to turn in an unnatural fashion. So much so that it almost seems like it's heading towards the people who are recording this from afar. The rocket turns almost 180 degrees and eventually breaks up and explodes on the ground. And what led to its mishap in the air? According to reports, there was an emergency shutdown of one of the engines for an unknown reason as the rocket took off. When it did, the 17 seconds of it being shut down led to it going drastically off course. Sadly, that wasn't the end of the problems. The rocket had very toxic and dangerous fuel. It was spewed all over the area it crashed in and even emitted a poisonous gas that was a danger to the town almost 36 miles away. Not the best look for an agency that's trying to beat another country in a modern space race. Number 3. GPS IIR-1. In January 17, 1997, the rocket GPS IIR-1 was launched. It was meant to be a part of the United States Global Positioning System, which obviously is something that is very important to the nation right now. But in 1997, it was still getting set up, and 13 seconds into the launch, this particular satellite rocket, it blew up. What shocked many was the fact that when it came to this particular explosion, it was fast and shocking in how many pieces it was divided up into when the explosion happened. This wasn't like the last 2 entries. This was a shatter machine. What makes this so curious is that this wasn't an accident in the traditional sense. On every rocket is a flight termination system, which is used to detonate the rocket should something happen and safety needs to be prioritized, which was the case here, as a crack in the motor occurred on the rocket basically right at the launch. As it got into the air, it got worse, so the team activated the termination computer and detonated the rocket at just 1,600 feet off the pad, the lowest failure in many years. Granted, there was no one nearby, but it could have been bad if there was. Number 2. Vanguard TV3. As noted earlier, the Soviet Union, Russia, was the first country to send a satellite into space via Sputnik 1 and 2. Naturally, the United States wanted to respond and redesign the Vanguard TV3 to be its first satellite to go around the Earth. In 1957, it was set to launch. But just 2 seconds into the launch, the rocket that housed Vanguard TV3 lost thrust, landed back on the launch pad, and promptly exploded, sending a massive fireball in all directions and heavily damaging the launch pad itself. No cause for the rocket explosion was ever found. TV3 was unsalvageable. While the United States obviously could get satellites into space, this was one of many dark days for the program. Number 1. Intelsat 708. In February 1996 was set to launch in China a rocket named Intelsat 708. But upon launch, things immediately went wrong in the worst way possible. The trajectory of the launch was off almost immediately, and as the rocket continued to fly through the sky, would eventually turn around and crash itself into the ground in a village that was near the launch site. 6 people died in the event, though certain reports claim that the number was higher. It was a failure in the guidance system that caused the incident, and the companies responsible for the event were held accountable, including paying $20 million in damages, further proving that rocket launches aren't just a matter of getting objects into space, they can be a matter of life and death. And there you have it, a look at various rocket launches across history that went very, very wrong. Are you shocked that these rockets went up in flames like that? Which of these do you think were the most traumatic ones to experience? Do you hope we never have a tragedy like this again, or this is an inevitable fate of spaceflight? Let us know in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you next time on the channel.